Welcome to Boss Bitch Radio, you guys. Today I have a very special guest. Great interview. You're going to love it. I have Celeste from Confessions of a Bikini Pro, the podcast. If you're not listening to, you got to go over and subscribe to her podcast. But today we talked about so many things, competition world. We talked about post-show body image. We talked about national stages and the shocker that it is to be there. It's so much different than a regional show. We talked about Celeste's journey into her podcast empire and so much more. So please tune in and enjoy the show. Boss bitch. Boss bitch. Nice to formally meet you, but I've been like a raving fan forever since I've been competing. I'm a big fan of podcasts, so naturally it was like really hard to find much in the world of podcasting for competitors. So when I found you, I was like binge listening to everything. And then I got a wild hair and decided to start a podcast 2 years ago. And it was like largely due to being inspired by just like, okay, I can do this, you know?
Yes. Oh, that makes me so happy to hear. I love that. Like when I started it, I found the same reasoning. Like there wasn't really much out in the space for competitors. And then I was like, well, I think these women deserve to have light shine on them. And then I was like, but it could be a total flop because maybe there's a reason there's not.
That was my thinking too. That was totally my thinking too. I was like, okay, usually there's a reason, right? Like, why is that not happen? I did find some that it seemed like they had a handful of episodes and then they just stopped. And so I just really admired the fact that you had a consistent stream of episodes and everything was like methodical. And, you know, the interviews, you learned so much from hearing other people's stories, even though I've competed, you know, plenty of times. It's just, and I've, you know, coached athletes. It's just nice to hear other pros talk about things and you're like, okay, this is normal. Or, oh, that's, you know, you could really relate. So it's nice. It's really, really nice.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
You're welcome. And I wanted to get into that a little bit more, but I definitely want to introduce my audience to who you are in case they haven't already. I feel like I have a lot of people that already listened to you that are like, oh, I listened to you. And then mine came up as a recommendation, you know, in podcasts, but you've been podcasting since 2018, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. So were you already competing then? Or did you start competing after?
So I started competing in 2015.
Okay.
That's when I did my first show. And then I became a jaded competitor and blamed it for everything. And it wasn't until I took personal responsibility for my mental struggles that I ended up like re-falling in love with the lifestyle. And I wanted to prove you could do it and have a healthy mentality.
Same here.
And then it ended up like turning into the psychology and the clinical mental health counseling I do. But yeah, exactly. Yeah. Similar story.
Very similar. I competed in the same era for 2011 through 2014. And same thing. I was like, basically like this to bodybuilding, you know, middle finger in the air, like it's ruined my relationship with food and, you know, all these things. And I took 4 years off. So, and I was like, I need a break. And when I came back, I had a completely different mindset for sure.
It's so awesome when people come back too, rather than feeling like you could never come back. I honestly thought I never would. I was like, I detest it. It's terrible. And then I realized it wasn't. It was definitely me. And I loved the lifestyle because I was living the lifestyle before competing.
Right.
And then after competing, I was like, wait, I'm still meal prepping. I'm still going to the gym all the time. Like now, how can I change my relationship with competing? And it came down to like the body image and the food. And now I feel like we go through all these things for a reason. And it led me down the path that I'm on now with competitors in the industry and all of it. So I'm glad I didn't walk away forever. And I know you've talked about how much you appreciate like self-awareness and the inner workings. And so I could see like it was because of the self-awareness I was actually able to grow from those experiences.
Definitely. And I think at least in my experience, I had to go through all of that because I feel like there were people or like outer, like external, just kind of influences that were telling me these things, right? Like other people that had been there, and I was like, meh, kind of putting my hand up, like, no. And then I had to actually go through it myself. And I see my clients go through it too. And I really, I had considered stepping away from coaching athletes because I just felt like so many women experience this, but I felt like, okay, I've been there, I've done that, and I want to take them down the right path and at least get them through it in a mentally sound way. So they'll come out of it with a pleasant experience. And, it's not for everybody, whether or not there are some, takeaways that aren't so pleasant, but I just wanted to be that voice of reason. That's like, these things are normal, and let's go through it together. We'll walk through the fire together,
Love that. Yeah. That's beautiful.
So how did you actually get into competing? So did you do sports growing up or anything like that? Or did it just look fun?
That's a great question. It looked fun for sure, but I found it because I was a volleyball player that was my background in athletics. I was a volleyball player. And then in high school, I got into jujitsu as well. And that continued beyond high school, and volleyball did not continue. And it was my freshman year of high school. I was really struggling a lot with depression and anxiety, suicidal ideation, those types of struggles. And I remember I went through this like high school breakup, and the guy at the time would get me those like Trader Joe's 1 pound chocolate bars, like every single.
Oh my goodness!
And I would eat them. I love chocolate.
Oh
so.
Yeah.
But after that breakup, I remember he had cheated on me, and I was looking at my life, and I was like, I'm such a great athlete, such a great student. I am doing so well, but how much better of an athlete could I be if I was prioritizing my fitness and nutrition as well? Like, not just being like the leader on the team and the go-getter and the top player, like all that aside, like if I'm already doing that, I could be better. And at the time I wanted to be a collegiate volleyball player and take it to that level. That was like my main identity. So I decided, okay, I'm going to start lifting and I'm going to start eating right. But that turned into disordered eating majorly. And a lot of that was also, and I brought up the ex because a lot of that was also a lack of confidence. Like I felt, well, if he cheated on me, then I can't cheat myself. I can't expect people to treat me right if I'm not treating me right. And I've had people give me backlash for that kind of statement. But at the time, it's what I needed. I need to show up for me and what I want, and I can't expect others to do that. So I built a lot of confidence in myself. Granted, there was disordered behaviors behind it, but it got me into the fitness industry. It got me exposed to it. And then I was following, this is back in like 2012, and I want to say I launched my Instagram like 2013 or 14, just sharing my fitness journey. And I was in like my junior year of high school at the time, and I was still playing volleyball, interested in all that, started jujitsu and whatnot, and I was following these fitness influencers. And you remember Shreds?
Oh, yes.
Like, yeah, okay.
Absolutely.
I was all about that. I was like, oh, Paige Hathaway, I love this. And
loved Paige Hathaway.
Okay. Yeah, I still love her as well. And so I had asked for my birthday. I was like, I want to be coached by Paige Hathaway. And I asked that as a birthday gift, and my dad did get it for me, which was awesome. So I started working with her, and that just got me more into the gym, but I needed money for a gym membership. Didn't have one. So I started coaching volleyball, and I eventually burned out on volleyball and decided not to play, even though I was going to play in college and all that. And I was like, but I still have this athlete drive and mentality. And I just fell in love with fitness, and I realized that was really my passion, my calling. I started studying dietetics. I was already certified as a trainer. Like I was that girl in high school selling training programs to people.
I love it.
Not
I was hustling.
Like, I'm not doing, exactly. Boss bitch, right?
Totally.
So, I was like, that's what I'm going to do. And then I just like was loving the industry, the way that it like was promoting what it gave me was confidence and self-love and this belief in myself. And then competing was a very simple, I just want to see, it's kind of what starts, I think, a lot of people's journey. I want to see how much further I can take this. What's the next level? And with that athlete mentality, I always wanted more for myself. That was true in any area of life, but especially with the athlete mentality. And I said, okay, like I saw Paige competed a long time ago. I was following some other competitors at the time, some of which who are still in the industry, some of whom are not. And I was like, okay, I'm going to do this. And thank goodness I did some research because I ended up finding someone who is an IFBB bikini pro. Mm-hmm. And I got into the NPC that way and did my first show 2015 Muscle Contest Iron Games in November.
That's too funny. The Muscle Contest was one of my first bikini shows because I started with figure. But yeah, Muscle Contest. Yeah, that's too funny. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that's honestly like, I got it. I was like, okay, this is just going to be what I do. But it wasn't wow, I've been dreaming about bodybuilding my whole life. It was more like a natural progression with fitness industry exposure.
Got it. So what did you think? Like when you did the whole thing? Because I have girls that come to me or like athletes that start, and I can think of just a few right off the top of my head. And they're like, there's a very objective goal, right? Like there's a very objective winner in terms of the sport, right? It's like this many, you're in volleyball, like this team got this many points, this one didn't, there's the winner, there's the loser. And then you go into bodybuilding and you're like, but I'm doing everything. I'm working hard. I'm eating, I'm doing all the cardio. And then you get up there and maybe you place great, but maybe you don't, you don't place where you would have liked to or whatever. And that is a challenge for a lot of my athletes, I find in my experience, because they're so used to being like track and field stars or soccer, really great at whatever sport. And then bodybuilding, it isn't that way. And it's a shocker, it's a shocker for some. So did you adjust to that subjective, like judging over your sports kind of mentality?
That's such a great point. It was a shock at first because I had been like that whole like team captain, star player.
Yeah.
So it was that identity that dictated so much of my life and gave me so much belief in myself. But I remember at my very first show, I felt like the expediter like pulled me off the stage with a crane type of a feeling because I didn't, it's like I didn't place. So what do? They like get off the
stage. They're like, bye.
Yeah. And I was like, damn. And now I look back and I'm like, rightfully so. Get me off that stage.
Yeah.
Get me off the stage. But at the same time, I'm like, okay, when I put myself back in first time competitor shoes, I was 18. I was just in love with the lifestyle. I wish that I would have put more weight on the process than anything and celebrated that lifestyle more than anything. I was so focused on the competition that I think now, knowing what I know, I would have done it differently. But yeah, it was hard for me to adjust because I remember walking off that stage like, that girl in my class was talking to me backstage about cheating on her damn diet. I never even took a lick of something.
Right.
I'm pissed. Like, right. But that's not the sport.
No.
You look better than she does, you're going to win. Like the judges aren't asking you how much you weigh, how strict you were with your diet, what kinds of food you ate. So that kind of, actually, I would say that realization led to a big part of me being a jaded competitor and being like, this is dumb. It gives you disordered eating. And I went through the whole binging post show and gaining so much weight. And I realized after some time of just stepping away from that I wanted to be able to have an approach that made me feel good and that I would be confident in. That wasn't so much about the outcome, but it was really more so, what is it bringing to my life? Because I didn't get into it to win necessarily. I got into it to see how far I could push myself. And I was like, I need to reconnect to that and push myself. And I grew so much in business and personal development wise. And that opened my eyes to a bigger purpose for myself. And my message, build more than just a body at the time.
I love that.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
It's amazing.
I appreciate that. Like it hit me when I started as a fitness coach. That's what I wanted to help people do. Ironically enough, it then hit me after the podcast. I started like, oh, it applies to bodybuilders. And then everything changed. But if I hadn't gone through those phases, I don't think I would have come to those realizations. But it was a transition at first for sure to let go of the score keeping.
Yeah. When you finished your first show, did you kind of feel like defeated and like not want to continue? Or did it like do the opposite where it lit a little bit of a fire under your butt and you're like, okay, I see the game they're playing, and then just work harder and continue to like improve your package, so to speak? I do have athletes that I find that my athletes, like they get pissed, to be quite honest, like it angers them. And they generally like, they get it, especially when I'll do like physique assessments post show with my clients, and I'll pull up their show or their stage photos and like the people who won. And I'm very subjective about it and I hold no feeling. And I'm like, okay, here's why. Let me explain. And then they understand. And it usually lights a fire under their butt to just want to improve. But some people are the complete opposite. They're like humiliated and embarrassed, and their whole family was there. And, what is your experience with that?
I was not embarrassed or humiliated. I also didn't have there wasn't as much out there as there is now.
It's totally different.
Like now, competitors come into the game knowing that they probably won't win their first show, or they come into the game knowing that this is a long-term journey. It's not just a one-time thing. I went in just thinking you do a competition and you go back to your normal lifestyle. At the time, they wouldn't even post about reverse dieting.
No, that wasn't even a thing.
No, it was just like, okay, yeah, now literally reverse dieting at the time was following your prep program in reverse. Like, at least that's what I had the impression of. And so I wasn't defeated necessarily. I was more so like, what is the point if I just did all of that? And I took an approach that I don't take now. Like, I don't take the super strict, I gotta be on this meal plan and only eat XYZ foods. And it wasn't as strategic as things are now. So I think if I was given the approach that I take now, I would have probably been motivated to be better. If I understood bodybuilding more, I would have been like, oh, that's normal. Like, it's fine. Like, I want to be like this person. Also, be honest, like totally straightforward. I thought they were rewarding. I don't want to offend someone, but I'm going to. And at the time, I guess it probably applied, but skinny girls, there were some skinny girls in.
There isn't anything you can say on this podcast, Celeste, that's going to get you in trouble. Trust me.
Oh, I've listened to some of your episodes.
Oh, no.
Like,
how embarrassing.
This is awesome. No, not at all. I was like, this is so good. Like,
okay,
women need to hear other women talk about this. But yeah. So no, I remember thinking like, wait, but she's so skinny. Do I actually want to look like that? What do I want? I want to look like Paige Hathaway. That's all. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
So that was hard, I think. But at the end of the day, I kept going with the lifestyle, even though I had a difficult experience post-show. I really reconnected to myself and my body and what I wanted from fitness, and I made it my approach. And then 2017, I was an addict, basically. Like, I got into it again, did my first show back, and I competed 5 times that year, 2017 to 2018. I couldn't get enough. I was on like that high. I was on a roll. And that's when I became like the type of competitor I am now, where it's like, it's not about winning necessarily. We don't go in to lose. But sure. It's not about, it's like, I want to beat my last package. And I can objectively see where I wasn't going to beat the girl next to me that day.
Yeah, I definitely think that the experience of like frequent shows gives you so much insight as to where you are on the scale of your package, really. In 2018, when I started competing again, I coached myself, and I like look at those photos now and I'm like, that's so embarrassing. I cannot believe people let me get on stage like that. Right. And I did fine, and I placed and everything. I didn't win, but I also was realistic. Like, I got off stage and I'm like, she clearly deserved first. I wasn't disillusioned,
Right.
So I think that frequency, or the ability to compete more, allows you to have that perspective and not just think like, I worked hard, because some of my clients, their families get really upset when their person doesn't win. They're like, oh my God, but she worked so hard. I feel so bad. She's been doing this and this. And I'm like, all those other girls have been too.
Exactly.
It's just, you've only seen her in this isolated structure of like coming to parties with her food or going to dinners and not eating and not drinking. And so you feel so bad for her for all the sacrifices, but all those girls up there, the top 5, I guarantee you have done the same,
100%. It's that perspective. Like, we love the people who support us and want to see us win, and they've seen our process and journey. But at the end of the day, it is very objective. And if it was a score sheet on the most disciplined, it'd probably make judging even harder, because all of us are so disciplined, right?
Yes.
So I love that.
Yeah. So how has your experience been? I know you just did nationals, right?
Yeah, I did North Americans in September.
Okay. And this is your second national show?
Yes.
Okay. How is that experience for you? Like
Compared to the first?
in contrast to, I just would like to give like my listeners an idea of the caliber of competitors that shows up at nationals versus like when you go to an amateur show.
Yeah, that's a
right?
really great point.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, you don't look around the room and see anyone who doesn't deserve to be there.
It's very different than an amateur show. Yeah.
At an amateur show, you might see people just crossing off a bucket list, or they look phenomenal, but it's really the only show they're doing. Maybe they're new, so they don't look as dense or mature. And at the national level, there's a different hunger in the air, it seems like.
Yes.
Like the vibe is different. I wouldn't say it's catty necessarily, but people have their game face on. And at a regional show, you have a similar experience, but it's so different. Like when I went to USA's, I had the same feeling as when I went to North Americans. The vibe is different. People are there. They've had their fun in the industry. They've had their fun with the competitions. They're not there to have fun. Usually they will. We have fun with it, but they're there to focus. And I know, like, for a fact, when you step on a national stage, it's very rare you're going to see people who aren't bringing their best. Granted, I've brought my best to North Americans and it wasn't good enough, right? But it was still my best. You're going to look around the room, you're going to see a lot of girls just bringing an amazing package. And you could look around the room and you could identify probably, instead of that one girl at a regional show who you're like, she's probably going to take the overall. You're going to look around and be like, all these girls look phenomenal. Yeah. So the caliber is just higher. No one's backstage posing in a way that you'd be like, that doesn't belong on stage. Like people just have it down. It's a lot more polished as well, I would say. And I do want to circle back to something you mentioned about bringing a physique you weren't proud of, by the way. I think I look back on some of my photos and I'm like, why was I on thing? But to that point, this past year, the only reason I qualified for nationals, funnily enough, is I did a show that had like barely any girls. I was so not conditioned. I don't even want to look at photos. It was so bad. I don't even know why.
From nationals or the show before?
No, leading into it. My first regional show of 2022. Yeah, I'm like, that was so bad. Like so bad. I look better now probably. And I'm 25 weeks post show, but like, I still qualified for nationals at that show. And I wanted to say that just to paint that picture even further, that you could, the outcome is not always if it's your best physique. Of course, that's going to make you feel most proud. But yeah, that's how I would paint the picture anyways between the two.
Yeah. It's definitely a different beast. I remember getting to nationals and looking around and thinking, well, this was fun. Like, this was fun. Definitely not winning this. There's like 40 girls in my category, And at that point, I think when I had that like feeling, it wasn't like I wasn't like sad about it. I was just like, wah, wah. Like, okay, that's cute. You thought you were going to win, And I think it just kind of shifted my energy for the rest of like the weekend that I was there. Like, we, go to the check-ins and do all that. And then backstage, I wasn't really like looking at anybody's bodies anymore once I decided that I wasn't going to win. I don't know. And so it ended up that I did win my pro card, but I was so like, I don't know. I just kind of like, I'm going to sit out here because it was intense. That energy that you're talking about backstage is so different than in an amateur show, I feel, or a regional show, that I was like, okay, I'm going to just like hang outside the corridor here because this energy is like, it's making me feel a little anxious. And it was obviously turned out to be a fantastic experience, but I would not have been shocked in any capacity had any of the other girls up there taken first over me, because I was just like, how the hell are they going to figure this out? That's how good everybody is when you get to a national show.
Such a great point.
It's crazy.
It's like hair's difference between people, and some girls will win their pro card multiple times even. And it's just, that's such a great point. So looking around and also like kind of being able to detach from judgment and know that, hey, I brought my best, I'm here, that's what matters. And all these other girls did too. So if I get it, great. If I don't, great, because I'm going to be showing up tomorrow at the gym anyway. I'm going to be better next week anyway.
Yeah. Yep. Got to kind of just own it for sure. Okay. So shifting gears a little bit, a lot of the questions I get through like Instagram is really being able to nail down all the things that you need to nail down when you're doing a prep, right? Like, how do you get all this stuff done, right? Like your cardio, your training, your supplements, your water, your posing, so on and so forth, all the things. So I always like to ask my guests who compete, like, I always say success leaves clues. So what does the first like couple hours of your day look like when you're in a prep scenario? Because I feel like if you have those couple hours on lock, and they usually start the night before, right? Like you prepare yourself the night before, that, the rest of the day can kind of go to shit, for lack of better words. And you've got like a good chunk of like the most important things done. So I find that most people who have succeeded in such things as running a successful podcast and a business and competing, they have to have some productivity hacks like their first at least couple hours of the day. So I'd love to have you share that if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, what a great question. I want to give people some more context into my last prep, if you don't mind me just sharing.
Go for it.
I wasn't just like prepping and running my business and my podcast. It was prepping, running the podcast, running my business, which is like client based and service based. It was speaking at events almost every month last year. It was traveling as well. Oh, and I was completing my master's program, which required a 9-month internship where I had to work like 30 plus hours a week. So just for people that like,
I'm so glad you said that. So glad. Yeah, because that just made me tired and need a nap.
Girl,
and I'm not even in prep, okay? I am well fed right now.
Oh my gosh. It was a lot. Yeah. And the thing is, people will make excuses about why they don't have the time. And like, I totally understand that, because I even look back, I'm like, how did I do it? I was at one point got up to 3 hours of cardio as well, which, that's for another conversation. But I did have to get to that point. I was on low macros for a bit. I had been prepping for a very long time. So productivity wise, what kept me going was the structure and the routine. I knew when I needed to prioritize my energy, and that's how I did it. So I considered like on a baseline, just like if someone was starting tracking macros for the first time, you'd be like, well, how much are you already eating? Mm-hmm. And then let's start. So I had to go, well, how's my energy like on a normal basis? And then how can I structure my day around this energy? So, because I knew it was going to be low at different times.
For sure.
And this does not include my caffeine addiction. So that did help.
That's for another podcast. Yes.
That helped though. But yeah, so basically it was like, okay, I know if I get all my workouts done in the morning, all my posing done everything prep related was first thing in the morning, because then I knew the rest of the day I could give my all to anything that came up work-wise and school-wise. Because if I was spreading out my workouts throughout the day, it was like an interruption to everything else. And you know how like if your phone goes off, it's like you now have to require 20 minutes just to like get back in the zone. Mm-hmm. So I was like, I can't have that. So yeah, I was up most days, honestly, between 3:30 and 4. Some days that was because I couldn't sleep. Other days was because I had to. Mm-hmm. And then I would go knock out the cardio fasted. I'd come home, eat a quick meal. And during that time between like my meal digesting, and that's when I would journal and I would do my routine that's more so inner work and personal development focused, setting my intentions for the day, knowing what's on my to-do list, what am I really working towards, what are my values, how am I aligning with those things. That's when I would be journaling and connecting in that way. I would sit down, thank you. Yeah. And after my cardio is when I would pose as well, because it was like a good way to delay the meal timing, to be honest, too. Just pose after that, come home, do all that. And then I'd sit down and I'd do emails. Right after I did all my journaling, I'd be like, okay, I'm going to get through as many emails I can in the next 30 minutes to an hour, get to the gym, back to the gym to lift. And then that lift would be anywhere from 45 minutes to an hour and 15. If I had any other cardio I had to do, if I did split up a day, I would just do it right after. But I generally didn't. And then I'd come home, and at the time I was in a relationship with someone I'm no longer in a relationship with. So part of me was managing that as well. And then I would be straight into my schoolwork for the day. So whatever schoolwork I had to complete, discussions or papers or research, whatever it was, get that done, recordings, transcribing, client sessions, all that. Yeah. And it doesn't even include clinical notes, like that was just, then I'd go into all my clinical work for the day. And I went to the counseling center 4 days, I don't remember now, it's all a blur. But multiple days of the week. And then I always blocked off weekends for times to call like clients. And then during the week, like right before I would go to counseling, basically from 12 p.m. to 3 p.m., I would take client calls or business calls or record podcasts. Yeah. That's how I structured it. It was energy based because I knew my workout would energize me just enough to be able to get that wind to go straight into like shower and work on client stuff the rest of the day. And I knew that or get my schoolwork done, I knew that it would give me that focus. But if I was putting my workout off till later, and that's why I would do the emails before the workout because I just ate. So it was just like, everything was timed according to energy and meals and fuel. And
So you were on a roll. Yeah. And that's super helpful, I think, to just get into a routine like that. So your body just adapts to like knowing, okay, we're getting up at this time, we're eating at this time, we're training, and there's little room for like thinking. You don't have to think much. You just have to execute. I find that my athletes and clients in general, even like my lifestyle clients, if they can knock out their workouts in the beginning of the day, they're more likely to actually, one, get them done, and two, see better results because they stay consistent with that. It's like my clients in the evening, there is a good percentage of them that obviously stick to it, but there's like so much potential for like fires in your life to start that you have to put out at the evening or, end of the day. And it's like, well, I guess I can't work out. The dog puked all over the house or, the kid's sick or whatever. And it's like, if you could just take care of yourself, it's like the whole oxygen mask theory, like get your workout done first. And then the rest of the day, you can kind of figure everything out. And it's 3:30 is a beast. That's real early.
Yeah. And
but you do what you got to do.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, there'd be times I would take naps. If I didn't have a call scheduled, I'd be like, I'm taking a nap. If I was able to afford a break, I would afford a break. And for me, it wasn't in balance. I did sacrifice sleep. I'd say that was my number one thing, sacrifice, which isn't that great for an athlete, but it's like, okay, well, I also am maintaining this high level of school production and client production and business production. This is one area that's just going to be set back. And when I needed a recharge and reset, I knew I could set aside the time to do that.
Love that. Okay. So I have some selfish questions because I'm a podcaster. And so everyone's just going to have to listen to these selfish questions that I have.
I hope they learn from them.
Yeah, exactly. So how did Confessions of a Bikini Pro come to be? Like, what inspired you, and like, how did it just like take off? I mean, there's probably a lot there. It's probably a whole nother podcast, but at least, just give us some insight into how you just kind of started this little project that turned out to be amazing.
Thank you. I'm mindful of the fact that I sometimes go on tangents as well. So if I go,
girl, me too. You're fine. You're fine. You're on the Tangenty of Tangents podcast. You're fine.
I'm like, oh, you want that story? Well, it comes with like 10 others. So.
It's totally my style. It's great. My listeners are used to it. So that's great.
They'll soak it up.
Yes.
Well, to summarize, essentially, where I got into podcasting, I actually was working as a virtual assistant while running prior to doing the mental health coaching, I did fitness coaching online. And one of my mentors, or my main mentor at the time, he had launched a podcast and had one going for years. And he needed someone to take on the editing of it. And I was like, well, I would love to have more work and more things to do. I would jump off the cliff, essentially, instead of quitting all my jobs. I could put all my eggs into this basket of my business. I'd worked multiple jobs just to run my business. And I was like, no more, need to fully commit. Well, then I was like, well, I wouldn't mind doing some virtual assisting, wouldn't mind doing some other coaching business. I love the business. So he's like, yeah, I need someone to start completely edit my podcast. I'm losing this VA. I want you to do it. And I said, cool. So I learned how to essentially produce podcasts through that. So this is also why, like, people are like, you started very early in the podcasting game. Basically, like, when you look at podcasts over the course of these years, like 2018 was a great year to get into podcasting. It was really taking off. It was like it's still an early time. So I got into it and was just editing his stuff. And I don't use the systems he used, but it exposed me. And then one day I was in the garage on the treadmill and I see this stack of Oreos on my counter, and I was like, do pros think about that? Like, are the pros looking at Oreos and thinking like, oh, those look really good?
They sure
like,
are.
They are bomb. Actually, I have not had one in a while, but they are freaking bomb. So I was looking at them, and then I was like, I don't know much about these pros. And if bikini is the fastest growing division in the industry, why the heck don't we know more about these amazing women? I would watch the interviews online, and I would follow these girls on Instagram. I'm like, I need to know more. And I was like, all right, I'm going to stalk these girls' pages. Started reading. I'm like, I'm getting some glimpses into life off the stage, but not enough. Everything is, including myself, _fit, right? It's let's talk fitness. Let's post about fitness journey. I was like, I want more. Mm-hmm. So I went on a walk with my mom, and I was like, I have this idea. I want to start a podcast where I just interview like IFBB pros, specifically IFBB bikini pros. We don't get enough credit, and these women are amazing. And I said to her, success leaves clues, because that's something my first mentor said. So when you said that, I was like,
yeah, it's a thing.
It is. So I was like, selfishly, I want to have the clues from these IFBB bikini pros because I'd like to be one. I was like, but also selflessly, I think they deserve more light on them in the industry. We need to know their stories because there's so much more to this sport than what it is meets the eye. So she was like, well, when are you going to record your first episode? And my mom saying that to me, just like, that is what made it come to life. Mm-hmm. Because I think if she had responded, some other people were like, don't do it. It doesn't align with your business right now. It doesn't make sense. That's not your ideal market. And I was like, can't it just be a passion project?
That's how mine started. Yeah.
And that's like, and then I know for you, because you had done that interview with your coach, but I know that your podcast has made an impact on your business. And for me, it transformed everything. But that's really how it actually came to light. And I was on Team Edge at the time with Ingrid Romero. Mm-hmm. And I had a lot of teammates who were awesome. And I was like, well, I'll start with asking some of them. And Tamara Haddad was one of them. And she's an Olympian. And I really looked up to her. And I still absolutely adore her. And I was absolutely shocked when she said yes. And so I have a lot of gratitude to the first 5 guests I had on the podcast, because they said yes to me when they could have said no, because there was no proof of concept. I had nothing to show for it. I just had this passion and this desire to do it. They said yes. And then it was just me grinding away at it.
I love that. And you just started asking. You just started asking. Did you feel like, because I find that for myself, I wanted to start and just kind of get my feelers out there with my podcast and just share my message. And it was really a passion project. I did not anticipate that it was going to be like, hi, you haven't downloaded and you haven't dropped an episode. What's going on? There was like there was a few weeks where like life got busy and so my DMs were like blowing up. Hey, I need it. I'm doing cardio. Where's your stuff? And so it just kind of spiraled in a great way. But I do find myself hesitant to ask guests to come on even still. I'm being completely honest. I was like, Celeste isn't going to say yes, but let's just try.
Oh my gosh.
I know. I was like, I don't know. We'll see. And the podcast I think is doing pretty well, as far as like downloads and things. But did you just say like, I'm just going to ask and like go for it?
Essentially, yeah. So what I did was I knew a lot of their stories already. So I crafted very particular messages regarding their stories. I said, this is how you've been inspiring me. Or I pulled up, girl, there's some messages that I've sent to people who I got on the show, but I don't know how I got them on. But the list of follow-up is ridiculous. But it was like, I just sent them like, this is something I really liked about your journey. Or I would send them their own posts and I'd be like, love it. This is amazing. Let's talk about this on the podcast. Or could you expand on this? And then, like I said, I had no proof that it was going to be great. And it was all thanks to them for actually promoting it when it went live too. And I think I made it very seamless for guests as well, because right off the bat, I had like a jot form that they'd fill out and they'd be able to like put in all their information. So I could really craft the episode around them, make it whatever they're comfortable with. I feel like I asked questions that they wanted to be asked about that helped me. And I was not a very as confident as I am now as an interviewer. I've grown a lot, but yeah, that's all I did was message them and hype them up because I truly see them as amazing. And I thought their story deserved to be heard. If anything, I found that most guests were shocked that I reached out to them. Oh. They're like, You want my story on your podcast?
I
Like
love that.
so I think that you would find the same thing with the more people you ask. Like they'll be shocked, like, yeah, I have pros now who are like, this is on my vision board. This has been something I've dreamt of
That's
since you
amazing.
started the podcast. And I hear that and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is how like part of why people want to go pro so they can share their journey. And that's
Yeah,
like mind blowing to me.
that's amazing. I just got the chills. So fun. So I have podcasty questions about that. So what has interviewing taught you as far as like interviewing all the athletes? I mean, I'm sure there is a ton, but if you had like just an overarching, like it's taught me a lot about this, like how you relate. They're very relatable, they're normal. What is your experience with interviewing so many athletes that have done some amazing things on pro stages for sure?
I think it's taught me that like these athletes really are just like us and they deserve to be on a pedestal, not but they don't necessarily want to be separate from us, if that makes sense. Like I've learned that they want to share from that. They want to be supported and they want to support. I've learned that they're not untouchable. They're actually incredibly reachable, kind, genuine. They're so amazing. Like they're humble. So I think I've learned above anything else, like, yeah, they're amazing. And I think there's reasons why they're so successful or have accomplished great things. But I've learned consistently across the board that people are willing to share so much more than you think.
Mm-hmm.
And with the right questions, people will just like blossom. And I've had pros afterwards. We stopped recording and they're like, that felt like a counseling session. I'm like, well, good, because I'm practicing my counseling skills. But at the same time, I'm like, that's right. Like people are willing to share more than we know. So that's something I've realized.
I love that. Now, how has it changed your life in the sense that I know, for me, my podcast was a passion project, but it has spun into so many amazing relationships with people across the world. I'm like, my Instagram people are now my family. They're not even my friends. I'm like, y'all know a little too much about my life. Right. And so I feel like that has changed my life. I feel like just sharing transparently, like who I am, they know. And so they're like, they speak my love language to me, which is amazing. So it's really like filled up my cup and also has opened up so many doors in my business in terms of growing. And I'd love to know how that has changed for you. I know it has had to impact you on so many levels, but from maybe like a business perspective with starting the podcast that you didn't think was going to happen.
From a business perspective, I didn't think that I was going to transform the entirety of every aspect, literally everything. Yeah. Like I had no idea that one day I'd be like, I literally specialize in helping competitors with their relationship with food, their body image, and their goals. It just like evolved. And at the time I like was helping general population with fitness and nutrition, but I was selling a lot of self-love and personal development, having my book and all that. But then when I did the podcast and it was revealing to me with the competitors, like that changed everything. I just started doing market research with them. Because I got so many more followers in the competitive world that I was like, now my following is mostly athletes. And they're all resonating with my posts anyways that are about food and body image. And yet I'm not selling them anything. I don't care to. I never did. But then when it was after these interviews, realizing how many people really struggle, I was like, I can help them. I study this. I want to study it more. And these are my people. I love the competitors. Like you said, they became like your family. I was like, these are my people. I relate to them. I understand them. I've been there, done that. So I did some market research calls and people were very open. And then it just kind of continuously grew my business from there. But that would be the business wise. That's the main impact, is it transformed the entire niche that I serve.
On that topic, is there something, I mean, I'm sure it's probably a loaded response that deserves its own podcast, which you maybe have, and I probably need to share in the show notes. But I get a lot of repeat questions as far as girls when they are done with show, and loving their off-season body is such a challenge. And I know I experienced that. It sounds like you did as well. And I think for me, it was this last probably 4 years of competing when I came back into it from the long hiatus that I realized, like, it's not realistic to maintain that body. And I knew that. I was fine with that. And so I wasn't really shocked when my body wasn't as lean and shredded and I had rolls and cellulite. And so I was like, cool, this is my normal body. But my first show, I mean, I had massive freak out. So is there some like maybe just couple words of advice that you have for girls when they're transitioning out of the show that you feel like resonate with a lot of your people?
So when you're in the transition process, take the time to identify the habits and behaviors that make you feel really good. Oftentimes, I think people hate on their body or criticize their body because their behaviors actually aren't aligned with their own expectations, or maybe their expectations are unfair. So generally speaking, like if you're struggling with your body image, evaluate if you're even happy with the decisions you're making. Because, you know, if you slip up on your plan, let's say, you're more likely to feel less confident in yourself. So rather than criticizing your body, let's be realistic about the expectations you have, if they're fair or not, and how you're currently executing. Because I think that plays a big role in confidence. And take the time to celebrate how your body is showing up for you. Your body just went through months of intense work to get you to a level your body's not even supposed to be at.
Yeah.
Just to showcase it, right? It's like, what? So your body has just supported you so much. And something I had to tell myself that really transformed how I looked at my body was my body's sole purpose is to give my soul an opportunity to live and have this physical experience. And
I love that.
Thank you.
Amazing.
And truly, like, our body is built to keep us alive. Like, we don't have to think about our heart beating. We don't have to think about our stomach digesting our food. This is happening automatically because our body wants to serve us, to let us live. So when I started looking at my body as this vessel that's supporting my life and giving me the opportunity to feel what it feels like to hold someone's hand or to kiss or to hug or to lift a weight or to stretch, like, I get to experience these things because of my body. It changed how I treated her. And it allowed me to also see that, okay, my body literally is just responding to what I do. So I could treat my body like crap. I could binge, I could restrict, I could hurt myself, I could push myself to the brinks like I do in prep, or like we do in improvement season, lifting heavy as hell. And my body will still show up for me. So that's so powerful that it made me want to say, like, thank you, body. I love you, body. Thank you, body. Like, I get the opportunity to do this. And even when I've not shown up for you, you've shown up for me because you want to see me live. And that's changed my perspective.
I love that. So do you feel honestly now where you're at that you sometimes those like bad body days ever creep up for you? And then maybe you're just better equipped to handle them? Or do you just like, nah, it doesn't really faze me anymore?
Oh, they definitely come up.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm much more equipped now to deal with them, but the thoughts still come up where I'll be like, because here's how I look at it. I'm like, if I have days where I think my body looks great, that means I probably have big days where I don't think it looks great, because you can't have one necessarily without the other. There's a judgment happening. And we're in a sport where we're literally subjecting ourselves to be judged.
Yes.
So the first things we look at in the mirror are the things we're being judged on. So I definitely have bad body image days sometimes. Are they as intense as they were in the past? Absolutely not. Do they last as long? Absolutely not. Do I have things in place that support me? Yes, absolutely. So they do come up. I wish there was a way. Well, people will ask me, I just want to get rid of all of these. I'm like, good luck. Let me know when you figure that out. Like, I'll help you address it and work through it and reduce it. But if you can figure out and crack the code to never have a thought like that again and still be a competitor, let me know. Because I've been doing this a while, helping other competitors, and it's not, when you're in a sport where you focus on your body, it's unrealistic to completely detach.
It is. But I think you do something really beautifully, which I've gotten more brave as of late in my non-shredded body, is you share your journey like does not matter. Like shredded, not shredded, deep in the off season, doesn't matter. And it honestly, it's inspired me as well to be like, okay, this is the reality. I know I talk about it being the reality. I talk about it being the reality a lot on my podcast, but I'm not authentically sharing that because I'm self-conscious just like every other woman about certain things about my body. Doesn't mean I don't love it. I love it 90% of the time, but there's a 10% that I'm like, there's a little roll here. There's this, that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, nobody wants to see that on Instagram. Nobody cares. And I'm like, no, but I care. I care when like people like you share, and I'm like, fuck yes, we need more of that, you know? So I've been sharing more, and the feedback has been remarkable. You know, the feedback has been fantastic. And I imagine you probably hear the same thing.
Yeah. I mean, even just hearing you say that means so much to me to know, because we have these high expectations, and we get conditioned that we're seeing only these types of bodies. And so we forget that a normal body exists too. And by the way, most of us are still completely abnormal compared to general population.
For sure.
In our improvement season,
yes.
right? So like, I think about it, and to me, it's so natural to share all the phases of the journey because it normalized it for me. Like the reason I started sharing it was I was like, okay, well, when I post it, I'm literally owning my story. I'm not letting people tell my story for me. If I just randomly like stop posting about my body, people will say I'm binging, I'm off track, I don't care about this anymore. If I share my journey and where I'm at, I'm owning it for me. I'm putting out the message I want to put out. I'm satisfying my purpose and my values. And other people's stories can no longer be told on my behalf.
That's amazing. Thank you for framing it that way, because that is definitely a great way to have a different perspective.
Well, I'm glad. People will make assumptions, you know, like that. And we look at competitors in their improvement season, and we like to see it because we know that's normal, but it's so hard to share it because we also know what's celebrated. And generally what's celebrated is the abnormal, wow, elite looking physique and we reinforce that so often in our own journeys that it feels like a loss if we're not that way. But that's helped me win more.
For sure. I agree. Okay. So one last question, and then I'm going to be respectful of your time and let you go. Is there anybody that you have on your wish list that you have yet to interview? Or are you you're pretty good? Like you just reel them in, Celeste. No.
There's some people who had to pull teeth for. There's also some people who you ghosted me, you know, you said yes, and now you ghosted me. But no, I have not interviewed every single person I want to. There's some pros on that list that I'm like, I would love to talk to them. I mean, I would like to talk to our current Miss Bikini Olympia. I'd love to talk to Maureen. I'd love to talk to Janet. I would love to talk to these women who have been in the game for a very long time and haven't shared their story on the podcast yet. I'm really grateful for all the guests that I've had. I also have had people I've asked to come on, and they've stood me up, and I don't intend to have them on. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so totally.
There's some, but those are some people that I would like. I'm not at all opposed to pretty much having anyone on. Actually, I find everyone's story to be intriguing. But yeah, I mean, how cool would it be to actually have our representatives who have won the biggest titles in the world to share the other sides of their story?
That would be amazing. Yeah, I'm sure it'll happen. I have no doubt.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes. Well, I appreciate you coming on Boss Bitch Radio. Thank you so much. It means a lot to have you on and sharing your story. I would love for my listeners to come find you. So can you share wherever you are on the webs? And I will also link everything up in the show notes.
Yes. Well, this is my pleasure. I feel like me and you could talk forever.
I agree. Honestly. I'm like, I feel like I'm supposed to do something with you. Like something is just something. Like there's just a bigger message that the two of us have.
Absolutely.
Sure. So where can we find you on the internet? So your website
is www.celestial.fit. There you can find tons of free resources as well, like free food relationship coaching, free post-show blues, competitor related things as well. The podcast is there. And then Instagram is celestial_fit.
And podcast is Confessions of a Bikini Pro. And I'll link all that up in the show notes. And they have to go find you over on Instagram and be a part of your journey. So that'll be great. So I appreciate you. Thank you so much for being on the show. And I hope to talk to you again soon. Boss Bitch. Thank you for listening to Boss Bitch Radio. It would mean the world to me if you could rate and review the podcast. If you could give us a 5-star review on iTunes, drop us a little comment. We will read those, and we offer prizes as a ethical bribe for you to leave us some great mojo and words of affirmation. You know, that is my love language. And also, if you're over on Spotify, you can rate and review it there as well. All of this helps other women, other people, other folks see us, hear us, and learn from all of the amazing boss bitch tools and hacks, and hopefully get some LOLs. And if not, if anything, if you could share this with one person, I'd love you forever. And I know you are just here for my undying love. And last but not least, please, 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 please come find me over on Instagram so we can be buddies. We can be Insta fam over there. I am Diane Flores _IFBB_pro. Come say hi, drop me a DM, let me know what you think of the podcast. I'm always open for new suggestions and feedback as well. And I hope you listen again soon.